brought you today a book which is or could be really a life changer for many people if we understand it. As the author, Hustvedt, wanted the delusions of certainty is a compelling call to rethink our understanding of the self, blending scientific inquiry with humanistic insights to illuminate the intricate dance between body and mind. And Carolin, thank you so much for your book suggestion, because we talked already about the separation of mind and body and how important it is to bring this together. Can you maybe once show the book that we, yeah, okay, maybe I think you have to have it in front of you. Oh, yeah, no, it's good. Um, can you tell me what was the reason that you bought it, or have you got it as a present? And maybe so a few cents, what did you get from this book?
Yeah, happy to. I bought it myself. It caught my attention in my favorite bookstore. And then I have to be honest, it was sitting on my bedside table for quite some months. It is not an easy read for sleeping. It's
Yeah.
maybe that stopped me. It really took a long and very relaxed vacation for me to get started with it,
Hmm.
really get into it. So it's also like a good mind jogging exercise because it's very sophisticated, and I really have a lot of respect for the author because
Yeah.
she is not. I mean, she is intertwining a lot of fields of expertise in a very nice writing way, but
Hmm.
she has studied none of that originally, which is just heads off for Siri Hustvedt. Um, and
Yeah.
actually, I found let's say the time and mind space to read it when I was pregnant. And this was a very good matching, although I didn't know it before reading the book, of what went through my mind in that time where I was like having a very intense bodily reality. Yeah? I mean, you're changing like everything when you're pregnant. And this whole,
Yeah.
I mean, it's all about, or a lot about the concept of mind and spirit and how
Hmm.
we understand ourselves. What is also the let's say the history of ideas around how our mind is constructed, and
Hmm.
what is the connectedness to our physical being and experiences. And is yeah, it's a great read. It puts a lot of question marks, a lot of
Hmm.
doubts about your own default conceptions.
Yeah.
But this is what I liked about it. Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
great quote that when I looked into the book after my recommendation, a great quote by Simone Weil:
Hmm.
"Doubt is the virtue of intelligence." So without doubt, no scientist gets to maybe to real results
Yeah.
that matter, or to actually a good question to research into. You
Yeah.
really have to be critical about everything, or about in your
Hmm.
field about everything that is perceived as a given. And
Yeah.
it may be a little bit contradictory to what I said before about, I don't know, the realities of climate change and science, but I think yeah, it's well, it's a different story. This is very much about us as individuals, and because you mentioned before, there are also
Hmm.
some links into the whole AI discussion and how
Hmm.
easy are we to replace, and what of us will be replaced.
Yeah. And what I liked is you said, I mean, she's not really we couldn't say she is the expert about this. There might be different other people which are more expert or deeper into it. You said the book is written very tight. And yes, I thought so too. And Siri Hustvedt is an acclaimed novelist first. No? She's an essayist first and very intellectual from this, what she writes, known for her multidisciplinary approach. But she grew up in a household steeped in academia. So, as her Norwegian born father was a professor for Scandinavian literature, so there it might come from. Also, the wide interest and her childhood fostered a love for reading, writing, and critical inquiry. So, her interest in neuroscience and philosophy grew after experiencing a series of severe migraines, which sparked her curiosity about the mind body connection. Staying along in the shadow or in the dark to recover. And her work often reflects this personal journey, combining science, psychology, and the arts, as you also mentioned. And as she holds a PhD in English literature, and as an advocate for interdisciplinary dialogue, her writing is deeply influenced also by her own experiences as a woman in academia and as someone who is deeply engaged in both the sciences and humanities. And interesting is, I think in Germany sometimes people would say she has no PhD in this. Is this okay that she writes about it? But I think, as you said, Carolin, this book was written from her, and she says it in one interview to address the enduring questions of consciousness and the mind-body problem she had by herself. So she critiques the Cartesian dualism that separates mind and body, which believes has limited scientific and philosophical understanding for centuries. And her motivation stemmed from frustration with reductionist explanation of the human experience, particularly in neuroscience and psychiatry, which often ignore the subjective lived realities of individuals. The book also reflects her interest in feminist philosophy, as she critiques how these dualistic frameworks have historically marginalized women and their bodies, and saying, for example, if a woman bloods, then she is dangerous, or don't touch her. So her aim was to bridge the gap between the sciences and the humanities, encouraging a more holistic understanding of what it means to be human. If you should read one part of the book where you say this is something we should know, do you have maybe a small part, a few sentences you would like to share with us? Otherwise, I do.
Okay.
I'm prepared.
Then I found that quote of Simone Weil that I mentioned before. I was looking for it, but I have not nailed it down to a few sentences. So if you have, I would give
Yes.
you the leeway, but I would comment later on the feminist perspective of the book.
Yeah, that's great. And maybe you want to comment on the sentences I took, which if you like them or what comes up to you. One sentence I like was the body and the mind are not two things, they are one. Because we often separate this. So we say, okay, the body need, or but I'm there. So, or just also when I reflect my own way of working, sitting there at 11 o'clock in the night at my desk, and my body says, no, not a good idea. You should go to bed, you should sleep. But my mind says, no, I should get this script done. Then I think often it would have been better to listen to my body or to let them talk and find a solution which is good for both and see that this is one. And then certainty is a delusion, a comforting illusion in the face of complexity, where we often think in a complex world, we need easy answers. In a complex world, we look for boxes. We say, okay, this person is this age, so he or she should do this, this, and this, or not do this and this, or will think in the way. No? If you want to jump in from my quotations, please jump in. Otherwise, I continue because I sorted out 5 sentences.
Okay, wow. Yeah, well, this whole body and mind is one. She really dissects that idea on many pages. I mean, the
Yes.
book is called an essay. I found that a little bit funny, I have to say. It's an essay of 370 pages. And she's also nailing it down to specific scientist personalities who are in a battle of concepts for decades. And I found it what stuck into my mind was the comparison when she starts Descartes, I think, sometimes in the 17th century. But how we construct our own imagination, understanding of our mind, of our spirit, it started in, let's say, a very religious context, like you have the concept of the soul and I don't know what, and then we had the Industrial Revolution. It got very mechanistic, and today we treat, or we talk about our minds like if they were hard drives, and we need an upload, or I don't have enough RAM available for that complex discussion, and I don't know what. So we reduce ourselves like as if we were computers, and we aren't. And the duality. Yeah.
It's great that you're pointing this out, Carolin, because I think we are often so unsensitive with our communication, just taking over words. And it reminds me of a situation where I started at an IT company in Silicon Valley, and I had a phone call with my mother, I think 2 days or three after I started. And she said, "Oh my God, you have to stop there." I said, "I haven't said anything about my work there. Why should I stop there?" She said, "You are communicating in a different way." I said, "Oh, how?" So it was completely not in my mind that I changed in talking with her my communication to English words and to exactly what you said, where I took over the words from IT to the personal, interactive relationship matters.
Yeah.
So she said, "You sound like a robot. You sound like a machine.
Yeah.
You're using words which are not really sensitive."
Hmm.
And that brought me back saying, "Oh, I'm a communication scientist, so I should remind it with my own words." And it showed me how working in a branch, how being in a special environment can change your communication, and then, of course, also your not only your mindset, but also your relationships, but also your behavior.
And here is where also power dynamics come in, because we all do that. I do that too,
Yeah,
because we are so influenced by the reality around us. We use computers every day. We have social media
yeah.
where we also spend our time for other topics in. It's not only about my, I don't know, economic analysis stuff, but I don't know. I also read parent advice on my smartphone, of course. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and that is where the scientific discussion about what is the concept, what do biology, neurology, and all these fields say, it gets into real world. It gets back into the society, because this duality, like the space of mind and the whole complexity of getting it into computer science, is a
Yeah.
very male domain.
Yes.
And we see in the societal discussions the reduction back of women to their bodily functions, like,
Yeah.
okay, you are producing children, and that's
Mm-hmm.
your whole task. And this is, I mean,
Yeah.
I read the book like 2 or 3 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and ever since, the discussion in the world out there has gotten, sometimes I can't believe it, how much backlash we see, especially
Yeah.
to the role of women. And she is also reflecting on the role of female scientists in that
Yeah.
discussion, and on her own perception of what you say about how insensitive or unaware. I mean, it's also a lack of sensitivity to your own being. To our, I mean, we are more than just our minds. We taste, we smell, we touching
Mm-hmm.
each other. That's everything that computers can't do ever. So they cannot even, they don't have a rating
Yeah.
for the experience. And yeah, in the discussion, to put all that aside and just say, well, if I upload my mind as Mark Zuckerberg and then immortal for 200 years, yeah, maybe some of your thoughts are, but
Yeah.
you are not. And that is,
Yeah.
and there it's actually gets very basic, because it made me also realize, let's say, the dominance and influence of male perspectives in the history of science.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. And sometimes I'm also not sure if this discussion to bringing in into workplace, um, the importance of blooding of a woman once a month makes the situation better for women in the idea of proficiency and professionality, or if it reduces more in the idea of the whole women to this emotional aspect and less from professional world. And therefore, I took by myself from this book 7 tips, and maybe you would like to say yes or have another. First, question reduction explanations. So it's often that they oversimplify
Agree.
complex phenomena. Then embrace interdisciplinary thinking to gain a fuller understanding of the human experience.
Agree double.
Then recognize the interconnectedness of body and mind. They are not separate entities. Then be skeptical of certainties in science and philosophy. They are often provisional. Acknowledge the role of subjective experience in understanding human consciousness.
Yep.
explore feminist critics of traditional scientific and philosophical frameworks,
Mhm.
and understand that art and literature can offer valuable insights into the mind and body besides studying science.
Uh, Great. I'm impressed. Well, you did the much better summary of the book that I could have.
Um, Thank you so much. I just like that always when I read a book to bring this to essentials, just also to make people maybe fall in love with the ideas of reading this book. So I hope that I got appetite and listening to our conversation also about the book you sorted out. And thank you so much for doing it because it brought me to the book. And Carolin, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your insights here with us, with our listeners, and bringing new perspectives also here to the ground. So I hope that our listeners took a lot from this today's radio show. And that wraps up our episode of We Empower, a weekly radio show dedicated to celebrating the strength and resilience and limitless potential of women and men around the globe. So don't hesitate to get involved. Thank you for being part of our community. And until next time, keep shining and empowering others. So together we rise. And thank you for being here. Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.